And that concludes questions for oral answer. The House comes to the debate on the Budget Policy Statement 2017. Mr Chris Bishop.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I move that the House take note of the report of the Finance and Expenditure Committee on the Budget Policy Statement 2017. Mr Speaker, what does this Budget Policy Statement that was presented to the Finance and Expenditure Committee last year show? It shows four very important things. Firstly, Mr Speaker, it projects growth of 3.5% for the next 2 years, 3% over the next 5 years. And in the New Zealand context, sir, this is extremely good, far ahead of the long-run rate of average growth in New Zealand. Economic growth provides more opportunities for the Crown accounts. It provides more opportunities for New Zealand families. It gives us choices as a government. Secondly, sir, it projects more jobs, 150,000 more jobs by 2021. Employment at the moment, sir, our employment rate is the third highest in the OECD. It shows our labour force participation rate, sir, as one of the highest in New Zealand history, at over 70.5%. Those are some of the key metrics that determine the long-run future prosperity of a country, sir. Thirdly, sir, it shows rising wages. It projects that the average wage will hit 66,000. The average annual wage will hit 66,000 per year by 2021. We had 1.6% wage growth in 2016, far ahead of inflation. It's these kind of moderate, sustained increases in New Zealanders' real take-home pay that drive higher living standards. And fourthly, and I know members of New Zealand First really don't like this, it shows that people want to live in New Zealand. It shows that New Zealanders don't want to leave New Zealand anymore. It shows that New Zealanders overseas want to come home to New Zealand, and it shows that people around the world are choosing New Zealand as the destination of choice, because our economic outlook is far superior to many countries opposite. What the Budget Policy Statement, sir, shows is that a set of numbers that are the envy of the developed world. They are a set of numbers that any developed economy would love to show, and that is why people around the world look enviously, Mr Speaker, at New Zealand. What does the Budget Policy Statement show about superannuation? Well, what it states is that the government will resume contributions to the New Zealand Super Fund when net debt starts to decline below 20% of GDP. And we've had this debate in the last few days since the government's announcement on Monday about the gradual progressive rise in the super age from 2037 onwards. And we've had this debate about whether or not this is appropriate. And the government did stop borrowing to invest in the super fund in 2009. And, Mr Speaker, we maintain that this was the right decision. Borrowing money to invest in global equities is like a household putting money on the credit card to invest in the global share market. And we know, sir, that when the Cullen Superannuation Fund was set up in 2000 by Michael Cullen, it was set up to invest surpluses. Michael Cullen was extremely clear about this. He said, we are setting up this fund to fund the long-term cost of superannuation by pre-investing surpluses, not borrowing money and whacking it on the credit card, but investing surpluses. And as members opposite are so proud to proclaim very often, there have not been many surpluses in the last few years. Well, now we've got the books back into the black, and we've got these choices. And the other thing that members forget is that the Labour Party and the Green Party have done a flip-flop on this issue as well, because it was David Shearer in 2013 that actually decided that the Labour Party was going to agree with the National Party and not start contributions to the super fund while the Crown books were in deficit. And I can quote no more learned commentator on this particular subject than the former Green Party finance spokesperson, Russell Norman, who said in 2013 that he welcomed the Labour Party's backtrack. They were right to stop. The National Party was right to stop contributing to the super fund whilst running a deficit. Quote, it was always very strange that the Labour Party wanted to borrow money to put into the Cullen Fund, and that he's glad that they've seen common sense. So the now sadly lamented departed leader and finance spokesperson of the Green Party, actually agrees with exactly the position that the National Party has advanced consistently for 8 years, which is that it makes no sense to borrow money to chuck it into the Cullen Fund, into the New Zealand Superannuation Fund. And members opposite, they often say, oh, well, look at the returns and look at the returns. And the returns have been great. But it's very easy to look back in hindsight and say, if only we'd done this. Because, of course, investing in global equities and investing in the global share market, just because you put money in it, there's no guarantee of future returns. These things do have risk. Members opposite have no concept, no understanding of the concept of risk. And it's sort of a bit of a thought experiment, but it does beg the question, if we had continued to borrow this money and put it into the Cullen Fund, and we were sitting around today and the size of the fund had actually decreased by $15 billion, what would members opposite be saying now? Well, they would be standing up and they would be saying, that was a crazy decision of the government. You should never have borrowed money at a time that you were running fiscal deficits to invest in the global share market, because look at the consequences. Look what's happened. You've destroyed New Zealand's future. You've mortgaged young New Zealanders' future. That's exactly what they would be saying, and they would be right. We would have been doing that. We would have been doing that. So it's all very well to look back and on the past and say we should have done that, but it ignores the concept of risk. It ignores the fact that the fund could have gone down. The other thing about this argument about the super fund when it comes to raising the age of superannuation entitlement is that it would have required the government to borrow $13.5 billion more than we were already borrowing. And again, I point out that members often opposite like to stand up and talk about how the government's borrowing too much money, the government's borrowed more money than Rob Muldoon, we can't possibly borrow any more money, neglecting, of course, to mention their own profligate and extravagant spending plans. So I just point out the interesting contrast there. But it would actually, and they're trying to imply when it comes to dealing with the long-term costs of super, that if we just funded the Cullen Fund, that would have dealt with it. Nothing could be further from the truth. By 2040, the government's plan that the Prime Minister had outlined on Monday saves the Crown $4 billion a year by 2040. If we had borrowed all that money and put it into the Cullen Fund, it would have probably saved the Crown about $1.4 billion a year by 2040. So the big question for Labor and the Greens is, where is the other $2.6 billion coming from? What the government has announced on Monday, sir, is a sensible move. I am 33. I don't know anyone my age or of my generation who thinks that superannuation at the age of 65 with the generous system that we have is sustainable in its current form. That's because at the moment there are 4 workers for everyone over the age of 65. By the time we hit 20 years' time, there will be 2 workers for everyone aged over the 65. The long-term costs of super are going up. It's projected to treble in 20 years, from $11 billion a year to $36 billion a year. This fiscal earthquake is not something that's unique to New Zealand. It's why Australia is doing what we're proposing. It's why Denmark and other countries are doing it as well. It's time, sir, that the Labor Party reversed went back to its policy, its admirable policy of the 2011 and 2014 elections, and got on board with this, because there are a litany of quotes from senior Labor Party members about the long-term costs of super. Andrew Little said the one thing that scares the bejesus out of him, very old-fashioned word, the one thing that scares the bejesus out of him is the long-term cost of superannuation. David Parker used to go up and down the country to business audiences talking about the very epitome of fiscal responsibility was raising the superannuation age. Well, we agree. And the much-vaunted new deputy leader of the Labor Party, Jacinda Ardern, said we need to ask if the universal age of superannuation is set at the right place, and there are a series of quotes from her about that. Well, she is right. Andrew Little in 2014 was right. David Shearer in 2013, when talking about the superannuation age, is right. Parties opposite are playing populist politics on this issue, and they need to get on board with what this very fine budget policy statement laid out by the government provides, which is a great set of numbers that sets New Zealand up for long-term prosperity. And I just want to end my speech by talking about that, because actually the hard work, sir, is just beginning. We have done a very good job getting through the Christchurch earthquakes. We have the fiscal headroom to get through the Kaikoura and Wellington quakes. We have got the books back into the black after the profligate spending years of the last Labor government. And now we have choices. And I, for one, am looking forward to campaigning later in the year on the choices that the budget policy statement provides.
Well done. Mr. Speaker.